Well, hello and welcome to the Snap Society. Today we have Hannah Hillard, not Hillary, because for some reason I always want to call her Hillary. And she is going to be talking to us about studio lighting. And I'm so excited because I'm a natural light photographer and I want to know how you get these gorgeous pictures, what lights you use, how you set it up, all that good stuff. So welcome to the Snap Society web show, Hannah.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, first of all, you're in your studio, so tell us about that.
Sure. I have a fun little studio. It's probably close to 500 square feet, much bigger than the one I used to shoot in, which was like a room 12 by 12. I did that for like a year and was tripping over everything and finally decided to take the plunge and move. So in studio, I shoot everything with the studio light, which is funny for people because I actually have an awesome natural light studio, north-facing windows. It would be perfect for someone who preferred natural light. I just have a love and passion for studio light. I adore the consistency that I get with my images, and honestly, I can't obtain it with natural light. So for me, it just works.
Yeah.
I love it.
And before we go into the lighting, you don't just have a studio and a photography business, you also have a boutique?
That's correct, yes. I actually photographed for several children's clothing lines, and my whole entire world started to revolve around babies, children, clothes. And so I just decided, hey, why not go ahead and open a children's clothing boutique? I carry some of the lines that I photograph for, and then lots of other lines as well. So it's crazy.
Wow. So how did you get connected with that? I mean, because I know that a lot of people are probably wondering, I want to get connected with, you know, taking pictures for this boutique or that boutique, but it's hard to know how to get in with them. So tell us.
Sure, it is. And you know, kind of the good old boy system. I actually knew someone who was starting a children's clothing line, and that's where it all began. So 3 years ago, I started photographing for her line and have been photographing for her ever since. And then once you start photographing for one children's clothing line, you kind of get into this little, you know, group, and other people start contacting you and asking you to photograph for them as well.
So have you ever had to actually approach somebody to ask to be a part of their line, or has it always come to you? Because, you know, we're going to all hate you if it just comes to you naturally.
That's funny. You know, there have been times in lots of different boutiques and children's clothing lines will post a contest or something like that on their page. And so I just encourage people to go ahead and submit an image. And that's actually how I photographed for a few clothing lines before.
Okay.
So just get your foot in there.
Yeah, just kind of approach them. And so how do you charge them? Or this was not going to be part of the interview, so if you want to stop talking about it, tell me. But do you charge them, or do you do like a trade out? You know, I take the pictures and then I give them for free, and then you give me the clothes that I photographed.
It depends. Since I own a children's clothing boutique, I'm not really as interested in getting things for trade as other people would. Who pulled up their awesome prop closet. So most of the time when I do things, I'm actually a hired photographer by several of the companies, so I work exclusively with them. And of course, we keep the adorable clothes as well because we like to continue to use them, but it's also a paid job. Some boutiques contact me, and if that's something that they can't do, then we work something out, and I'll just do a regular photo session. Sometimes they supply their own models, and we do it that way, and then I just give them the images, I give them the product back.
Gosh, you are so savvy.
Oh, well, thank you.
Okay, so let's get into your studio light setup. First of all, I know that there's a ton of different lights options out there. So what light do you prefer and why?
There are. And when you're first getting into studio light, you can potentially waste a lot of money on studio equipment before you actually know what you really need. I like to keep it super, super basic. All you really need is one light. I use an Alien Bees 400.
Okay.
I have tried using an 800 before, and it is just way, way, way too powerful for me for newborn photography. So I have to diffuse the light so much to ever get it soft enough to wrap and just look natural with my newborns. So all you really need is one AB 400, a really heavy-duty light stand, and you can kind of see in the background
yes.
my light stand It is super heavy duty. I have concrete floors in my studio, so it's
Okay.
actually on casters, so I can just wheel it around. Once you start getting into big octo boxes and diffusers on the front, your light gets very top heavy, and the
Okay.
last thing you want to do is have your light tip over on someone.
Right?
So it's really important to have a substantial light stand as well. Um, and then as far as a diffuser, I started off using an Octobox, which Octoboxes you want at least 47 or 48 inches,
Okay.
and that's on the small end. If you can have up to 60 or 70 inches, if you can accommodate that in your space, then it's absolutely gorgeous. You get a very nice wrap with your light,
Hmm.
and it's just really soft. You can actually stop down really low and shoot wide open as long as
Hmm.
you can use your light. I've recently transitioned to using an Octobox and a PLM, which is also from the same maker as Alien Bee, so Paul Buff.
What is
PLM,
PLM?
that's a really great question. It's just a PLM. When you go to the website, I don't even know. It just has an acronym PLM.
Okay.
So I'm not
Is
really
it a
sure.
diffuser? Is it a light? I mean, this is a different language. I'm natural, you know?
Sure, I know. Okay, so it works the same way as a softbox. It's just
Okay.
another type of like umbrella
Okay.
softbox.
Okay.
Um, it faces the other direction as
Okay.
what an octobox does. So it's a little weird to set up on your light, but it works the same way. And you can it's I was so used to working in a small space that I needed a very narrow diffuser because your light ends up taking up so much room. I
Okay.
needed a really narrow diffuser, and a PLM is just built more like an umbrella, so it doesn't take up as much space, even though the diameter can be bigger than your octobox. It's
Okay.
more condensed.
Okay. So, how much is that 400, the Alien B400?
Um, like how much
Approximately.
it costs?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's approximately $250.
Okay.
I
And then,
feel like for under $500, you can have a kick and light set, and
okay.
that's all you need.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, is this specifically if you are taking pictures of newborns? What if you're taking pictures of children or couples? Would you need a whole different setup? Would you need more than one light?
No, I'll pan my studio right now. Don't mind the mess. There's only one light in here,
Okay.
so I only ever use one light. So
Okay.
if you have a diffuser, excuse me, that is large enough, and the rule is you really want your diffuser, which is your softbox, to be as big as your subject. So
Oh,
obviously,
really?
like, yes,
Oh,
my
my.
diffuser's not as big as like a family of like 12, but if you
Right.
position it correctly, it still works beautifully. So
Okay.
yes.
That is a good tip that it needs to be about the same size as your subject.
Correct. Yes.
Wow.
That keeps it extremely natural looking, which is funny that like I don't shoot natural light, but I want my images to look like natural.
Right. So do you try, in order for white balance sake, do you try to like get rid of all the natural light in your studio when you're actually shooting?
No, and I have a different school of thought than some other people. I mean, if you look at my ceiling right there, that's probably fluorescent lights.
Right.
Straight ahead of me are huge, beautiful natural lights. No, I don't turn anything off. I just white balance on at any time I shoot a newborn, I white balance on every single blanket,
Okay.
and then I end up syncing in Lightroom. But when I do that, it's super consistent, and my diffuser is so big and it's behind me that it really blocks off a lot of that. But you'll see with studio light, your sync speed is it's so like your shutter speed is so slow that if you weren't synced to your flash or your light, you actually would take a black picture.
Okay.
So sometimes I try it before my light's on, and you can't even see light seeping through.
Right. Okay. 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 So let's get to some pictures and just have you kind of tell us about the positioning and where the light is and all that good stuff.
Sounds good. All right, so the first picture that you all can see is a diagram of my studio light setup. So in the first picture, I diagrammed how I would shoot a newborn on a beanbag, and it's not much different than shooting a newborn on a prop. So you can see the blue circle in the middle would be the beanbag with the baby. You always want your baby's head or your subject's head closest to the light source. So my baby would always be with its head camera left and then the body camera right. In that image, I also show a reflector. Now, I hardly ever use a reflector because I'm so used to the way that I shoot that if I need to add any light back, I'll just go ahead and do that in Lightroom or Photoshop. But some people, if you just want minimal edits, then you may need a little reflector right there. But you can see how the light is positioned, and I stand pretty much, or kneel pretty much directly in front of the baby. The light source on the left is always, the middle of my light is pretty close to the baby's head, and then it is tilted down a little bit, and this creates a nice soft light with shadowing without being flat at all. And then the second picture that you see, my lighting is really similar for no matter who my subject is. This would be if there were a child in the picture. And again, I hardly ever use the reflector, but I do have it shown in the diagram in case you prefer not as much shadowing as I do. So the light is always, I'm right-handed, so it makes sense when I put my light behind my left side a little bit. Again, I want the middle of my light to be at nose level really with my subject, and then I'm going to tilt my light down just to kind of cascade down the face. It keeps a little bit of shadow under the eyes, under the nose, and keeps, again, your light from being very flat. A lot of people think that when you use just one light, you have very flat light, and you do unless you think to tilt your softbox down.
Okay. That's good to know. Okay, so what's that?
I said groundbreaking.
It is groundbreaking. I actually am using a light. The only time I use light is for this, and I have one light, and it is up pointing down. So I am just so glad that I'm doing this right.
You are. Absolutely. That's too funny. I need a light right now. Look at me.
Get that big old light on you. Okay, so the next picture. What is this next picture that we're looking at?
All right. The next picture is... Okay, so the adorable little boy just happens to be my son.
Oh, he's cute.
Oh, I know. Thank you, thank you. This was shot using the PLM, which just kind of works like an umbrella.
Okay.
So this is shot, again, with the light a little bit to my left side, pointed down. You can see the catch lights in his eyes. The reason why I like to use an Octobox or a PLM is I prefer my catch lights to be round in the eyes. It looks better to me. It's personal preference. If you use a rectangle or a square, you'll just get square catch lights, which looks more like a window. Totally fine. It's all personal preference. And it would be unbelievable for you to see how little editing I have to do with my studio shots because the lighting is just so consistent. My white balance is already right. It just makes for a really seamless workflow.
Mm-hmm.
And the second picture that you all see is this adorable little newborn girl with a cute little cow hat on.
Mm-hmm.
This is also a newborn that I photographed using the PLM. I've been using it a lot here lately just because I love how soft the light is. This light just beautifully wraps around the baby. With a newborn, I don't really want harsh shadows, so I want my light to be extremely soft. As I was telling you how my baby's head always has to be to the left, this is just a little Photoshop fix where I just flip my canvases where every single image, the baby's head would be to the left.
Okay.
So that's why in this picture you don't see the baby's head at the left. So again, this is a shot on a beanbag. My light would be to my camera left behind me. The middle of the light would be about nose level of the baby, and it would be tilted down. And my light's approximately like 4 feet away from my subject, cranked all the way down because I want the softest light possible. And I typically shoot my newborns at like a 2.5 or a 2.8. So I want to shoot as wide open as I can. And really just focus right on the eyes and that just to get a nice soft image.
Okay.
And then our third picture that we're looking at is, it's a shot done on a rug with the little baby in the wrap. The lighting is done a little bit differently on these because typically the baby is either lying on the beanbag face up or lying on the floor.
Okay.
So we just need to change the position of our light a little bit. So on this one, we would go, you just kind of have to act like the baby's back on the beanbag and you would just light the same way. So we want to light head or face down the body, always like head down on the baby. So we would move our light closer to the top of the baby's head. And then we also want to tilt down a little bit more since the baby is not laying, horizontal on a beanbag. It's laying on its back on the floor. And I really want this light to cascade down the baby's body.
So we want to tilt the light down more.
Correct. Yeah. So instead of just a little tilt, we're going to tilt our light. So here's our little tilt. We're going to tilt the light even more.
Okay.
So that we can continue to get just the nice shadows under the baby's nose and eyes. So that's how that one's done. And then the photo with the adorable little baby who's like 5 or 6 months old. This is more similar to the first image that I showed you of the little boy. But you have to remember, and I'll tell you why I love this light stand that I have, is our light needs to go up and down when our subject moves. So when our subject's standing, again, we want the middle of the light close to the eyes, the nose of the subject. Well, when your subject sits, and this happens all the time with a toddler, they're up, down, all around. You need to move your light down. So with this baby, my light is pretty close to all the way to the floor. Buying a light stand, be super careful because not all light stands go down to the floor.
Right.
So the one that I have is awesome because it's on the casters. You can take your light all the way down to the floor, and then you can still tilt it in just a little bit. So this just shows that you need to continue to change the position of your light. I'll tell you, it's not as important when you're using a huge diffuser because you're kind of covering all of the space, but it still does make a difference as her eyes are open, and we want that catch light, the round catch light in the upper corner of her eye, just so it gives it the cute little sparkle.
Okay, that is a ton of information. I feel like if I were going to do this, I would need to watch this like 10 more times just to, so thank you for all of that. Okay, do you have any other little tips for us with it?
Let's see here.
I feel like I just got a really condensed class.
You got schooled on studio.
I did, yeah.
Let's see here. One thing when you're budgeting for studio lights, you can cut something out at the very beginning. When you get your light, it will come with a sync cord, which becomes very annoying, but at the beginning, it's something that can save you, $100, $150 to $300 if you're okay using your sync cord. So when you do that, you can use your light as soon as it comes out of the box. You'll just sync the cord, you'll just plug it into the back, and then you'll plug it into your camera, and then your camera can automatically speak to your light.
Okay.
In the future, you'll get a little bit annoyed with your sync cord, but use it until it starts just falling out on its own. I used my sync cord for at least a year, and I really didn't invest in a transceiver until my sync cord was falling out of the socket on my camera. And what a transceiver does is it's kind of like a remote. It speaks to your light, and then you'll stick a different one on your camera. So they just talk back and forth like remote controls. There are tons of different brands that you can buy. They range from $50 on up. I purchased the Pocket Wizard Plus 3 transceivers, and I did that because they're the exact same thing, and I didn't want to get confused with a transmitter and a receiver. So
right.
They're called transceivers. They're like $150 a piece, so it's a hint of an investment, but it's awesome. Like, it's great, but it's one thing that you can actually hold off and wait for until you're ready to make that investment.
Yeah, that's really good to know, and it's nice to take things in steps, and spend our money in steps instead of doing it all at once.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, you are a fabulous teacher. I really appreciate all this. Is there any other way that we can be learning from you?
Sure. I do offer one-on-one mentoring in my state, which is Indiana. I'm right outside of Indianapolis, Indiana, in Fishers. And I also have partnered with another photographer, Bree Fowles of Bluebird, and we offer workshops together. We teach studio lighting, newborn posing, and children's styled photography as well.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. And for the Snap Society, okay, I want to hear from you. I want to know, are you a studio light or natural light photographer? And so in the comment section below, make sure that you let us know which one you are. And thank you so much for joining us here at the Snap Society, where everything clicks.